Well, thank you everybody for showing up. I am Tim Perfitt from Two Canoe Software, and we do a whole bunch of stuff, but we've put together, what we found in the last year is that two of our products, DFU Blaster and MDS, have kind of morphed into an erase and restore solution, and we have some larger customers that are doing large-scale deployments, and so I've been immersed in trying to figure out how to be as efficient as possible to deploy Macs in a way that's kind of familiar from the NetBoot days and all those kind of things, but in the new kind of modern way to do it. So I want to share with you this, what we've learned. It is a kind of a vendor session. All my sessions are kind of, I promote our stuff, but at the same time, kind of interesting ideas in the community that you can use. So hopefully that's what you're here for. And we'll have some time for question and answers, and I can talk a little bit about our updates for other products. We have Faith Clausen here from Acroname. And if you guys aren't familiar with Acroname, you will be by the end of this session, because they have a programmable hub that is, I took and did things with it that they weren't expecting. So the erase and restore, what really, it's changed. Before we had monolithic imaging, you would just take a Mac and you would put bits down on it and it would be all set up and ready to be deployed. That's changed a bit with kind of Apple's push to have a one-to-one initiative where you send it out and the setup assistant sets it up. But there's and there's also erase contents and settings and also the MDM command to erase it. So why the heck do we need this? And there is a segment of folks that want to be able to take a machine because they're worried about a few things. One is that the machine, they don't trust the OS that's on the machine they got it, what they get it with. And not trusting it can mean it's not the latest one yet, so you want to have the most recent version. And while Apple does a great job of making sure it's the most recent one or close to it, when it goes out the door, it also takes some transit time. It might go to a reseller. It might sit on your shelf for a while. And so you'll be doing something that you need to get the most recent version. And as I'm very aware, you can put stuff in recovery that will install a launch daemon to set up the things. But if I was evil, Tim, I could put malware on there. So we have customers that want to wipe and restore the OS just to make sure once it enters their front door, they know exactly what's on the machine. And a big part of our customers is trade-in and buybacks. And so it's always kind of fun if you send out a new machine, especially to somebody remote. You can wipe the old machine, but that has to be on the MDM network. And even if you wipe it, you send it back, IT needs to really be assured that that's wiped. And so they usually end up wiping it again. And then they return it from release buyback, or they sell it to somebody that recycles it or refurbishes it. They can't trust that there's data on there that might be important. So they have to wipe it again. So making sure that the data's gone is an important piece to do all this. And the easiest way is just drill a hole through the SSD, but that's not very environmental and doesn't give you money either. What's that? Government does it all the time. There's shredders and all sorts of wonderful things. That's actually, I had a customer that they required to read back all zeros. And the way Apple works is it's cryptographically stored. So they throw away the keys. It's never going to be zeros. It's going to be random data. So they were destroying machines because they couldn't read back all zeros, which I can see why, but it's also makes me sad to see a machine be shredded. We also do side loading with MDS, which is, the term is kind of fun because it's overloaded for lots of political reasons. But we can, once you have a new machine set up to factory default, you can install, like I said, a launch daemon to install software, install users. And so you can have a new Apple M4 Mac that when the user starts it up, it'll install software before they even hit the MDM, which is kind of a neat idea. So the tools that we're going to be talking about today, we have DFU Blaster and Apple Configurator. We use the command line version of Apple Configurator to make sure we use the Apple tools because it's just more stable that way. And as I mentioned, the Acroname Hub 3C, which we'll talk about in a minute. That's for the Apple Silicon stuff. How many folks are still dealing with Intel machines? Okay, all right, about a third of the people. I found out recently, how many people think when does a Mac not have resale value or not worth it? 2017, 2015, 2013? We found it's before 2013, it's pretty much not worth it anymore. So machines as old as 2013, which is what, 12 years ago? Is that right? Yeah, 12 years ago. So I'm going to talk a little bit how I figured out how to make one piece of software that you can boot up in 1010 environments all the way to current to be able to get it up, which turns out involves Python, Objective-C, and a lot of pain. Okay, so let's talk about DFU Blaster. So DFU Blaster started out as being this great utility to put a device into DFU mode, and then we added the Pro onto it, want to charge a little bit, and it morphed into this kind of automation tool that allows you to do automatic DFU when you plug it in. Oh, let me just review. So DFU mode allows you to put, it's usually for embedded devices, but DFU mode allows you to put it into a mode where you can restore the OS very quickly over USB. And it kind of came about with Apple Silicon. You had DFU mode before that, but that was just kind of the some of the firmware and the embedded processes. So this is a great way to, if your Mac won't boot up, you get the flashing folder or question mark, it allows you to restore it. But what we found is that it's a great way to like make sure that it's completely wiped and exactly back to factory default. So for us, we use DFU Blaster. I got tired of the key commands to be able to put a machine into DFU mode because it doesn't give a lot of feedback. How many people have had struggles putting stuff into DFU? Okay, there we go. Yes, so I don't need to explain that to you. And so I put a little YouTube video out of like the timing that I did was good and people like that. But then once I came with DFU Blaster, it allows you. I have not put a machine into manual DFU mode in 2 years, I bet, just because I refuse to do it. I always use my software. And then the acronym hub allows us to kind of do it at scale. And it's a 5-port hub, but as we'll talk about, we can scale that up to where you have an unreasonable number of machines. I also found on my way to this adventure that you can get the serial number and other informations from the machine. How many people struggle with serial number, getting serial numbers? A few people. The Macs have no barcode on the bottom, and the serial number is a lot of times black on black, and I am in my 50s now, and so there's like zero chance of me being able to read it. And so being able to programmatically get that serial number. Also, zeros look a lot like O's, and if you get it wrong, the warranty information doesn't come back. You can't see the Apple Care coverage, that kind of stuff. All right. So the way that we looked at deployments is the basic setup is you do 5 Macs, plug 5 Macs. Let me preface this by the whole system is set up where you're not making it as efficient to restore the machines, but the amount of efficiency is the entire process, that reducing the amount of time the tech takes and doing the maximum number of machines per day or per hour, right? So that's the efficiency. We can't control how long it takes to DFU restore. You can't control how long the OS takes to install. That's based on the hardware and the OS. But there's other things around it that you can make sure that the tech's doing something else, or that they don't have to keep what I call state on each machine and remember what it's at. So kicking them all off and then going on and doing unboxing other things and that kind of stuff is a big, important piece. And what we found, the Apple firmware, we do a DFU mode, it does it at USB 2 speeds, which means you're limited to 500 megabits per second. I think that's right. And that takes about 8 to 10 minutes with the current restores per machine. And that's a long time, but if you do a lot at the same time and are doing other things, you can make it very efficient. I guess that's not a long time. We net booted and restore it. So sub 10 minutes makes me happy. All right, so the DFU port. I love this because there was a little rule of thumb, which is the DFU port on a Mac. So when you restore over DFU mode, only one of the USB ports is DFU. You both the target and the admin machine have to have the same port plugged in. So you have to know which one it is, which is easy enough. With the rule of thumb, which is it's the one that's closest on the left side, closest to the hinge. And then you're like, that's great, now I know. But then there's desktops, right? There's iMacs and there's Mac Minis. But that's the one that's closer to Ethernet. Well, the iMacs don't have Ethernet on all of them. Sometimes they're on the power cable. But that's fine. It's the one on the furthest on the side. And then Apple decided that on the Mac Minis, they're going to make the middle port the DFU port, and on the M4s, they're going to make it the rightmost port on the left side. And the other thing is, you can't tell all machines apart. I thought I could. I've been doing this a long time. Can I tell if something's Apple Silicon or if it's Intel? I would say a couple months ago, 100% yes. Turns out I was wrong, because 2020, they used the same form factor for the MacBook Air when they went to Apple Silicon. And then somebody, oh, I love this one. Somebody told me that you know it's Apple Silicon if it's a laptop and it has the larger Touch ID, right? So now I can identify it. Just look at it like, oh, large Touch ID, it's it. 2020, the smaller one is Apple Silicon. So for every rule, there's an exception. So I gave up. So I asked, we had an intern this summer, and she went out and scrubbed Apple's documentation, and we wrote down where the DFU port is on all Mac models from a long time ago. I think it was 2013 and upwards. And made a JSON, which now I'm reusing in DFU Blaster, and I made an iOS app, because why not, that allows you to put in the model identifier. And that's not just because I love model identifiers, but every Mac on the bottom has a model identifier. The difference, I also learned that product identifiers and model identifiers are used the same way in different places. So the one that starts with an A, I call that I call them both. I don't know what's the difference is between the two. But anyways, it's the A number that's on the bottom. And so if you search on this, you can search on the processor, you can search on the model identifier, the year, and it'll tell you with the circle what the DFU port is. So that was harder than I thought to figure that out. So this is DFU Blaster. It's expanded a lot. We've integrated support for the acronym hub to be able to kind of scale this piece up. What we added with the release we just did last week is one of the things that we sit on top of Apple Configurator's command line tool. And Apple Configurator has the ability to restore multiple machines at once. But what also can happen is you can have failures, whether or not it's a hardware failure, a transit failure on the USB bus, sunspots, whatever. And what happens is if one fails, you won't know it until the end, and so you can't restart it. So what you would have is people would kick it off, and they might get 5 successes, they might get 3 successes, but they won't know till the end, and they won't know which one failed. They have to look at it and see like, oh, that looks kind of like it went through it. So what we did is we made it all separate. So now when you do DFU restore, each process will be separate. You can cancel individual ones. If one fails, you can restart it, put it into DFU mode. So it also opens up some really interesting things you can do, like instead of doing all at once, you can plug them in and just start restoring them, and then unplug the ones that you're done and moving them off. And that works great for like tech help desks and that kind of stuff at higher ed, to be able to, as students come in, just kind of plug them in and let it go. But you can also do it en masse too. So we have this great button, Restore All. We click on it, and we don't even warn you, because I figured if you're doing this with DFU Blaster, you're not going to plug your personal machine in and restore it, which I haven't done yet, but I will at some point. One of the other nice things about this is using a custom IPSW and specifying which Mac OS you want to restore, because it's not always the most recent one. There's a big piece to this. Apple Configurator likes to download the most recent OS, which slows you down, right? Even if you have a fast internet connection. And the other thing is, every time you restore, Apple Configurator will take that IPSW and uncompress it for each target machine. And so you'll have an IPSW, which is 15 gigs. You're restoring 5 machines, which will be another 15 gigs per machine, right? So that's 15 times 5, which is 75, plus the original one is 90 gigs, right? And if it fails, it doesn't clean up the cache. So guess what happens? You run out of disk space really fast. And I don't care how big your hard drive is, when you're talking about 100 gigs per restore, it can run out pretty fast. So what we do in DFU Blaster is we clear out the cache before we do any restore, so you don't run into that problem. And we also added this down, which I love, the free space. That'll tell you what it is. We also added a clock down there, because it turns out when you're restoring, knowing how far along it is helps with your anxiety. It's like, why is this not done yet? All right, let's talk about the acronym Hub 3C. So we have this acronym hub, and What's kind of magical about this is and Faith will talk a bit more about this. This is really designed for test gear, which means it has an API and you can do unholy things to the USB bus and get like wonderful information off of it. It also means I learned so much about USB-C. It was so fun. It'll charge the laptops when you plug them in, and it's so smart that you plug in what's the iPads have, a 30-watt charger or something like that? It'll plug it in, it'll detect that it's 30 watts, and then spread it across 5 ports to charge, which isn't very much, right? But you won't know that because you think, oh, as long as it's running, it's fine. Because almost always on the back of any electronic thing, you'll say how many watts does it need, right? This is not like that. No matter how much you give it, it'll use it and give it to the other computers, which is kind of cool, right? And it'll detect it. The other thing is you unplug it, it'll start drawing power from the front. So it'll power itself from the devices. And it will renegotiate and figure out which one's the best one to use. So sometimes it's so smart, you're like, why is this on? Like, it shouldn't even be on. But it's all programmatically controlled, so you can limit how much power goes to each one, or you can turn the power off. And if you know me, giving me lots of buttons and switches to press, I'm going to press all the buttons and switches. And so we put it into DFU Blaster to make it in a way to make it as fast and as consistent as possible. So one of the nice things, if you have a whole bunch of laptops, you're trying to restore them, plugging in power to each one is just an additional step, an additional clutter with wires. So getting rid of that is a really kind of huge piece. And be able to send the DFU commands in a way that's very deterministic and puts those machines in DFU mode is really important. And then you can also get things off of it, battery level, port status. It has, I'm only using like 1% of the capabilities of this. But I have, whenever there's a problem, an issue with like, oh, we want to get this information, or this isn't charging, whatever, we can probe it and figure that out, and I can add features in, which is, for me, really great. So it's compared to a hub on Amazon, a 5-port hub on Amazon, this is really expensive, but compared to the amount of work that you save and the flexibility you have, it's a fixed cost. And what a wonderful thing about fixed costs is the more Macs you do, the cheaper the hub gets, right? So it's a very small portion of what the cost is. So one of the things that in my head, I had to get out is that like USB-C or even just USB hubs are cheap, right? But there's a lot of cool stuff you can do with them. So that's great. 5 machines. Who cares about 5 machines, right? We're here to talk about a lot. So what you can do is kind of a recommended setup is you have a Mac Mini. What's nice things about the Mac Mini is it has 3 USB buses on it. And the speed is all dependent on the buses you have. So you're thinking, well, wait a minute, the Mac Mini has 5. Oh, no. Actually, it has 4 USB buses. Sorry, I misspoke. But it has 5 connectors. So it turns out the 2 in the front on the M4 Mac Minis share a USB bus, which is great for you for keyboard and mouse or other things. It's way more bandwidth than you would need for that. But then you have the 3 ports on back that would be full speed. They're actually full speed Thunderbolt, but we don't use Thunderbolt. But for this, we usually recommend that you have 2 hubs because depending on if you have the Mac Mini or not, you might only have 2 USB buses. So 5 ports times 2 is 10. See, I'm good at math. But then you can do another one, and you're up to 40 devices, which we've kind of found saturates the tech, right? Setting up 40 devices and kicking them off. If you go above that, it's more than somebody can handle kind of doing the exercise. And so that's pretty good, right? If you restore in less than an hour, you can now do 40 machines in an hour. And now you're starting getting into the point where unboxing them and grading them takes more time than you have to restore them, at least in the aggregate. And what's great is if you work an 8-hour shift, you can do 350 to 450 Macs per shift. And then you can have multiple lines. So now we start getting into really interesting quantities where you can start processing a lot of these and make sense. So in order to talk a little bit more about the Hub 3C and what acroname not only do they only use a small feature set for what we use, or we only use a small feature set, they have a whole line of products too that do really kind of wonderful things too. So I wanted Faith to talk about it.
Thanks, Tim. Nice to meet all of you. So I'm here to represent the hardware portion of this solution and want to let you guys know who Acroname is, talk a little about who we are, and the unique features of this hub. So we are a 30-year-old company. I feel like that never happens anymore. We've had some evolutions along the way, but our specialty is product design and USB. So we've settled on that, and we have a very simple line of black boxes with steel cases. Ask me later how we decided between steel and aluminum. We are based in Boulder, Colorado. We're a small company. We do all of our design in-house with our engineering team. And we are also, our products are made in the US. At least our final assembly is in our facility. One of the things that our customers really appreciate about us is that when they reach out to us, they get a very technical team. So when Tim reached out to us for the first time, his email got to our engineering team, and our engineering team said, well, that's kind of interesting. Let's see if the hub can do that. So we built this hardware for test automation. So major device manufacturers all over the world will use this device in hardware validation, device labs, manufacturing end-of-line test, and then Tim reaches out for DFUing Macs. Like, oh, this is interesting. So a couple engineers took some strong interest, and then, sooner than I knew it, we had this solution in place. As a 30-year-old company in test automation, we have customers all over the world using not just our Hub 3C, which we're talking about, but we also have a USB-C switch and a couple of Type A hubs and a very ambitious future product line development as well. So what's also amusing to me is that the devices that you will be managing and repurposing and flashing may have touched this hub in their other parts of their life, whether it was manufacturing test line in China or Taiwan or wherever, or on an engineer's desk, either as a daily driver or testing voltage and current. Is that the end of my slides? No. All right. So there's a few unique features that made it possible for us to do DFU and to integrate with Tim. And there's a few features that have really crossed over from test automation. So, of course, resetting Apple devices, which Tim already talked about. We do that through vendor-defined messages. So this hub is power delivery capable. And because of the power delivery, we have the pipes to send these vendor-defined messages. We learned about the vendor-defined messages for DFU and for rebooting Apple devices, and we just put that through our hardware, and off we went. So resetting Apple devices, you can also get the ECID of the Apple device, and there's many ways to initiate it. We've integrated with Two Canoes. Super grateful that Tim has taken our API and plumbed some things into DFU Blaster, because we are hardware people. We do have some software that supports our hardware, but really grateful that Tim has used our API to bring it into DFU Blaster. But we have a very robust API. Our customers write automated tests through our products using it, and they love it. We also have an Apple shortcut for I would say it's a very simple interface if you have low volume, but really for volume, like we're talking about today, with Two Canoes and DFU Blaster, that is your setup. Tim mentioned a little bit about charging. So yes, we can charge 100 watts out per port. You just have to bring the power into the backside of the hub. It comes with a 100-watt power brick. We have a 280-watt power brick and also a 500-watt power block. It's a yes. It's significant, but that's also used by our test customers to feed and starve devices. So you want to drain a battery super fast, great, suck out the power from the back. You want to charge a device super fast, put a ton of power through the port. So as Tim had mentioned, charging the laptops while you're doing the process saves on a bunch of power cables that your tech would also have to connect. And that is, our test customers will also use this hub for lithium battery shipment compliance or any other battery testing. So if they want to see what is the status of this battery, and we appreciate Macs because they are, I think, currently one of the only devices that respond that PD message with battery information. So we can get battery details. How much is this battery charged? How much current has it taken? There's a lot of information that we can get out of that device. Robust connections. This might sound silly, but I promise you it's not. We have little screw terminals on each hub, and we do design and make our own cables because we are very picky, and some of our customers want to be able to purchase a SKU over and over again and know that it's going to be the same cable. Some of our customers, large customers who you think would know better, buy on Amazon, and then they buy on Amazon again. 2 days of engineering later, what's going on with my test setup? We're like, that cable changed. Amazon or whoever changed that SKU. So we have a SKU that you can repurchase. It makes it really reliable for your cables. And the screw terminal means that you can screw them into the hub so that this end is not getting a lot of wear and tear. So that way you're not going to wear out the connectors on the hub if you're plugging this thing in over and over again. So you can screw them in, leave them set up, and then all your downstream devices will be on the consumable end of the cable. So yes, also don't plug this into your laptop and then close it on the screw. But pro tips. So those are some of the unique features that are in the hub that have transferred over to this market. We are still learning about this market and hearing from our customers about their processes and trying to surface as much as we can in our API. So Apple Silicon, yes. Also iPads and iPhones, and hopefully working with Tim to make that happen as well, because the hub is capable. It's just a matter of resurfacing some things to make that happen. Yes?
Real quick question on the lithium battery.
I'm going to hit someone in the head if I throw it.
Thank you very much. Just for my curiosity, on the lithium battery compliance, does it do lithium ion and lithium polymer?
That's a good question. Can I get back to you on that?
Sure.
Okay.
Just hold on to it.
Okay.
We don't know where it's going to go next.
And so that's it for my slides. And I think we have, oh, wait, sorry, Intel Max.
Yeah, I got it.
Yep.
So I want to leave like 15 minutes left for questions in case folks have questions. But I want to talk about Intel Max, not so much that you guys are doing it, but because I thought it was interesting. So maybe you'll think it's interesting too. And it's kind of, I feel sad about getting rid of Intel Max. We had them for a long time, right? Even though Apple Silicon is pretty great, I do remember the excitement when Steve Jobs introduced Intel Max, right? It was a big deal. So one of the things we're trying to do with this program is any Mac that has value from 2013 to current, we want to be able to restore. And a Mac is not a Mac. There is the pre-T1, T2 Macs. There's the T1, T2, which means it had basically an iPhone inside your Mac or a coprocessor. And then we have the Apple Silicon Macs. And they very much are different. If you have a pre-T2 Mac, you can do NetBoot and restore. I just found out that there's the 2020 iMac that's still supported by Sequoia and maybe Tahoe. You can still NetBoot. Nobody cares, but it's kind of neat. I want to get one now for that very reason, for no reason whatsoever. So you can't. You used to be able just to erase the drive and then restore it. That doesn't work anymore with T2 and earlier. You have to use the erase Mac, so it erases it and resets the coprocessor as well. But before that, you could. So we need to do that case so that if you do erase Mac, it'll erase the T1 and T2s. And then with Apple Silicon, we don't care about that. We'll just DFU blast it, and it'll be gone. So there's kind of three methodologies. So I, in the last couple of weeks, dove back into Imager, which we use for Intel Macs, which is written in Python Objective-C. I've been a huge critic of Python for a long time, mainly because I don't like tabs and spaces in my code. But I've learned I had to go in and I made some modifications, and I built this feature. Latest macOS supported by model and recovery OS version. So that means when you boot a Mac in recovery, you don't know what version of the OS it's going to be. And if you're in 10.10, you might be able to install 10.15, but you won't be able to install macOS 12 because it's too early. But if you're in 10.15, you can install macOS 12. And if you're in macOS 11, it won't recognize the signature of macOS 12, so it won't install. It was insane, right? So the matrix of how to figure this out, but to make this one checkbox. So now if you boot into it, it'll install the latest version that will successfully install from that recovery at that moment in time, which means the tech doesn't have to figure that out because it's impossible to figure out because there's too many rules. And you also have all the installers, which I think is kind of fun. We have a web server built into MDS, so we can serve up this disk image with all the installers, which means on premises, when you're restoring the Intel Macs, you have everything locally, and you don't need to worry about downloading them. And this is what it looks like in the interface. So you have this machine is a MacBook Pro 16.3. It's booted into 13.7. So if you're in 13.7, the latest supported latest supported OS for that model identifier is macOS 15. But that doesn't mean you can install everything because you're at 13. You can't install earlier because you can't go backwards. You can only go forwards. So that means these are in red. And if this machine didn't support 15, this bottom one would be in red as well. And it would choose the one before it. I do not limit you because I don't know if my rules are correct completely or not. You can choose a red one. It'll most likely fail. But I could be wrong. So we did that, and the whole idea is that you want to press a couple of keys and it just knows what to do and restores successfully. We mentioned the automaton that in order to run a recovery, you have to do a long terminal command. And I don't like typing. I mean, I do like typing long terminal commands. I just can't do it right every time. So automaton lets you press the button, and it just always does it correctly. And so we found this a great time saver. And this is kind of we use it to boot. Sometimes I know that Internet Recovery is Command Option R and Command Option Shift R is the earliest version. Turns out not everybody knows that. So putting it on as an automaton button is helpful for people. Let's go this. Okay, and then we get the last thing is I'll talk about side loading. So you can run the MDS workflow on Apple Silicon or on Intel. And this is usually after the OS is already installed, right? So this is a Mac that's at Setup Assistant, you boot into recovery, and then you can run an MDS workflow that puts packages and scripts on it that will run the next time it boots up. So what I do, when I want to set up a VM, I have Virtual Buddy. It has a great way to install, well, let me go back up. Mindy's here. So I download using his MIST tool, I download the IPSW, I restore that into Virtual Buddy. And now I have to configure it. And one of the nice things to do in my development environment is I send a build over SSH. I want it to be named the same thing. The user account, I want it to have the same one because I'll forget the password. So I will go into Internet Recovery and I'll run this one command on this VM and it'll completely set it up. So I don't have to use MDM, but it'll be completely configured the next time it boots up. And my development environment is always, my target for my development environment is always the same. And what I found in the office is people will use that for any different kind of testing because they know they can always get into that same environment. And so it's a great way. If you just have a machine, you want it to be very specific. And we're finding that customers want to do that as well to pre-stage these, right? So get a user account on there or get some software on that before they send it out, and the MDM won't have to install it. All right, I didn't have 15 minutes left. We 11. So, Faith, can you come on up? Any questions? All right, Oh.
Nice.
Yeah. So I just wanted to bring up something that I learned about recently that I don't know if everybody else learned about or if Faith's company knows about. It's called Treedix USB cable tester, Treedix. Have you guys heard of that? It solves a lot of problems because it tests USB speed and power capability from a USB cable so that you can find out if you're getting actually USB 4 cables. And then, you know, you may have a slow cable and be using it with a drive and be like, why is this drive so slow? And my video guys thought that they were being clever testing cable speeds using the Blackmagic speed tester. And then they were like, I said, I can give you a Thunderbolt 4 cable, and they're like, oh, well, that'll be really fast.
cool.
And then I had to explain to them the realities of USB 3.2 Gen 2 speeds, blah, blah, blah. And they were like, what? So that it could come in handy for you. A friend of mine told me about it recently, and I probably need to get one.
We could actually get that off of the hub too, and I could build that into a DFU blaster. So I didn't know people cared about that. So that's great to know.
So as long as the cable has an eMark in it, we can surface everything about that cable through the hub. Yeah, through our API and hopefully DFU Blaster.
Sorry, Rich. We'll get to you in a sec. You're next.
Could you also build in if it's got DisplayPort pass-through? Because
It's USB-C only, so it doesn't have display
it
port.
doesn't cover the DisplayPort.
Coming soon.
She said that I didn't because I don't announce other people's products. It's a good way to make enemies. Can you pass it back to? Oh, yeah, pass.
One more question.
Sure.
Any hope for iPads with this? Got 13.
So Merrick, can I pull you out? Can you hand it to the person next to you? This is yes. Can you talk about that? You feel comfortable talking about it?
Yes, of course. So my name is Marek. I'm from Computer Center. I do massive deployments of iPhones, iPads, and Macs, and I'm talking about the huge ones. It's around 1,000 devices a day. Because Tim discovered the beautiful software, the DFU Blaster and the amazing hub, I was able to basically discover on my own that I can do iPhone and iPads as well with the DFU Blaster. So this was unusual and saved us, tons of time on the deployment. So we don't have to do any more, power button up and hold the power, just the cable and voila. Yep.
So we were not focused on iPads and iPhones because one, it didn't have USB-C across the line before, and also I was told it's not hard to put iPads into DFU mode. Turns out that was only that one person I was talking to, and it's
Yes.
So since Merrick has opened my eyes to it, and Faith has been saying, why not iPads, but we just got the Mac stuff.
It's there, it's working, and as you know, it's really hard to put iOS or iPad OS devices in DFU mode. Recovery mode is fine, but DFU works for me the best.
Yeah.
So.
Can you hand it back to Rich? Whoa.
Good throw. So my question again is, seems to be a theme, is talking about the cables. So of course, if you talk to Apple, Apple will be like, buy this and it'll work from us. And in general, how picky is DFU about having the right cable? Because I assume that you just buy like JRandom USB-C cable off of Amazon. It may work, it may not work. I assume that the cables that come with this particular hub have been tested and verified to work with the DFU Blaster. But it's one of those things. Is like you're just you have a cable wear out. Is there like a list somewhere of buy this and it'll work? Or is it just kind of you gotta get it from Apple, you gotta get it from this particular hub manufacturer?
So because it's USB 2, you have a lot more flexibility in terms of the speeds and the kind of cables, but Merrick's nodding his head. He's done a huge amount of work because the issue is robustness, reliability, and Faith refers to them as disposable. I know, is that what he calls this?
Cables are still
consumable.
are still consumables,
Yeah.
but
So you want to have the quality of the cable. It's not so much the speed. Does it do Thunderbolt, USB 3? You can reuse them. It should work with any of the cables, but I would talk to Merrick about that because he's done a lot of work to figure out the least expensive cables that work over a longer period of time. So that's your question. You can use any cable, but having locking mechanisms on it, a cable that's good quality, is important. And don't ever assume it's not the cable, because by God, it's the cable. Yeah. Does that answer your question, Rich?
It did. Thank
Okay.
you so much.
You pass it back.
All right, gonna.
oh,
Hi, can you put devices in DFU mode when they're all plugged into the hub?
Yes. So that's the procedure is you plug all the machines in, and then DFU Blaster will talk the API on the hub and put them all into DFU mode. And
Has
they'll
it
all come.
always been able to do that?
If you do a 1-to-1, like you're not using the hub, you're just plugging in. You have to be in the DFU port. So
Yeah.
you can only do one at a time. Then you can unplug it and plug it into a hub, a non-programmable hub, and it'll show up. So it's kind of a manual type thing, but it's always that's the reason we chose the acronym hub, is because you can put it in DFU mode kind of en masse.
Oh, okay. And then once you send the command to put the device into the DFU mode,
Yep.
do you have to unplug things?
You don't.
You
Not
don't.
with this.
Oh, okay. And then you can immediately start the configuration process.
Yep,
Oh,
and
sick.
we're adding DFU, auto DFU to the hub coming up, so you can plug a bunch of devices in and automatically start restoring and put them in DFU automatically. So the idea is that you limit the amount of work the tech has to do.
So to read back for understanding then, it's not the device, it's not the host Mac that's sending out the signals to put the target device into DFU. It's the actual acronym
That's correct.
that's sending those signals.
Yes. So you don't have to use. Doesn't matter what port you plug it into on the admin Mac, but it does matter on the one plugged into the hub.
Okay.
Yeah.
A slightly tangential question. Have you had any luck in using an automaton to put a device into recovery mode remotely?
An Intel Mac,
Apple Silicon.
it's a hard. So
I
we
know,
added.
it's that.
So we added this button in DFU Blaster. That's not it. Here, the recovery button. And what it does is it restarts the machine 5 times in a row, and it's like, oh, I can't boot up, I'll go into recovery. And so that's how we get into recovery that way.
Okay.
And that's for the Apple Silicons. And it's a hardware button that you have to press.
Yep.
I know AWS is here, and they've been talking to people about how they have a little actuator that presses the power button. So it's hard. Apple made it purposely hard to do on purpose, so that because you change the security mode. But people have used this recovery button, and I like it because then you can run an MDS workflow and not have to hold the power button down.
Yep. Okay.
That's the only way. With Intel, it's slightly different, but the USB power doesn't always get power depending on the model of the Mac, so it's not reliable to automate. Questions?
This is a bad idea, I think, but
Let's hear it.
have you considered integrating with OpenCore Legacy Patcher to allow restores to Intel Macs for unsupported OSs, to put a newer OS on a machine that it would typically support?
No, I have not looked into that.
Don't know OpenCore Legacy Patcher?
Yeah, I don't.
Oh, you should. Check it out.
All right, I'll look into it. Thank you.
Don't do this in production.
behind you.
Unless you really have to. And then go ahead.
Behind you.
So this solution requires 3 components. One is the hardware, one is the software, and one is the admin Mac in order to see the interface.
Okay.
Is that right?
So the defining them, the admin ones that sends the DFU command and restores it with Apple Configurator.
So I need an admin Mac to control the process.
Yes, you mean for the Apple Silicon, you do need that. So
But for Intel, do I also need?
no, the Intel, you need to get the OSs from somewhere. You need to put it on a web server. You can use DFU Blaster with an admin Mac, or you can put it onto any web server NAS device you have. You don't need to have an admin one to kick off the Intel, because Intel does it just directly with Apple.
Okay. And also, if a Mac has the, for example, Find My Mac feature enabled or activation lock enabled,
Yeah.
will this bypass that?
No, but we do help. So the being able to put the activation lock is an issue, but we found if we use Apple Configurator, or when we restore it with DFU Blaster, when it restarts, it won't go back to the welcome screen. It'll go to the recovery and say, unlock this Mac. So then you need to go to the customer and tell them, remove this, or go to Apple or throw the device away, because it's pretty solid. And that's it. We have a booth downstairs, and we'll be around for a little bit. So thank you, everyone, for coming.